There has been tolerance
groups in the United States are terrorist organizations doesn't make it so.
¿Cuál es la culpa de Cuba? Dios Perón tiene razón para atacarla. Con su propia sangre y con las armas arrancadas al enemigo, su pueblo derrocó una cruel tiranía impuesta por el gobierno de Estados Unidos, que poseía 80.000 hombres sobre las armas. Recuperó y entregó totalmente la tierra a los campesinos y trabajadores agrícolas. Los recursos naturales y las industrias y servicios fundamentales fueron puestos en manos del único dueño verdadero, la nación cubana. En menos de 72 horas, luchando incesantemente día y noche, Cuba destrozó la invasión mercenaria de Girón, organizada por un gobierno de Estados Unidos, lo que evitó una intervención militar directa de ese país y una guerra de incalculables consecuencias. La revolución contaba ya con el ejército rebelde, más de 400.000 armas y cientos de miles de milicianos. Soportó inconmovible miles de actos de sabotaje y ataques terroristas organizados por el gobierno de Estados Unidos. Frustró cientos de planes de asesinato contra los líderes de la revolución,
que hemos sido objeto de un montón de agresiones de diversos tipos. Hemos sido objeto.
We suffer of aggressions of any kind.
Aquí ha habido sabotajes a la agricultura.
Sabotage of agriculture.
Se han quemado campos de caña.
Burning sugarcane fields.
Se han quemado tiendas por departamento aquí en la ciudad de La Habana.
Burning department stores, shop
Se han quemado teatros,
theaters,
cines,
movies,
circos infantiles.
daycare centers.
Hemos sido objeto de guerra bacteriológica.
We've been the victims of bacteriological war.
Esto posiblemente ustedes nunca lo han oído.
Maybe you never heard about this.
The U.S. government has engaged, or did engage, in a whole series of chemical and biological attacks against Cuba. They have spread dengue fever and other diseases which have killed animals and plants, and many people have suffered as well. There have been, I think, thousands of people have gotten sick from some of these diseases, and some of them have died. And this is all well documented.
Los contrarrevolucionarios cubanos que han hecho sabotaje contra Cuba viven hoy libres en Miami.
Cuban counter-revolutionary organizing sabotage against Cuba, they are free in Miami now.
Uno se llama, te lo puedo decir, Orlando Bosch.
One of them is Orlando Bosch.
Ese individuo fue el responsable de poner 2 bombas en un avión de Cubana de aviación.
Responsible of 2 bombs in a civil plane, Cuban plane,
que venía de Venezuela,
coming from Venezuela.
Hizo escala en Barbados.
And he goes to Barbados.
Y cuando despegó,
and when it took off,
explotaron la bomba y murieron 76 personas.
The bomb exploded and 76 persons died.
The fact that Cuba asserts that groups in the United States are terrorist organizations doesn't make it so. I think that the relevant authority in that case would be U.S. law enforcement officials. and U.S. law enforcement officials have an obligation to ensure that all relevant U.S. laws are being obeyed, including the Neutrality Act and various arms. There are allegations made about the arms that these people may be possessing or may not be possessing. Our law enforcement authorities, I have confidence in our law enforcement authorities, and the mere fact that an assertion is made on the part of the Cubans that an individual is a terrorist doesn't make it so.
It was very funny to hear Mr. Whitaker say that's just the opinion of the Cuban government. The FBI and the Department of Justice have very clearly labeled such groups terrorists. The FBI labeled one of them, I think it was Omega 7, they labeled them the most dangerous terrorist group in the U.S. They have fired a bazooka at the UN. They have bombed ships docked in U.S. ports. They have blown up travel agencies which were helping people to go to Cuba. They have bombed companies which were sending supplies to Cuba. You name it. They have attacked them over the years, starting in, I guess, in the 70s, maybe even earlier. For decades it's been going on. It's a voluminous history, and for anyone to say that it's only the opinion of the Cuban government that these people are terrorists is absurd.
There has been a certain tolerance of, let's say, terrorist acts on the part of certain people in the Cuban exile community. For example, some years ago, tourist hotels in Cuba were bombed. An individual, in an interview with the New York Times, an individual connected to the Cuban American National Foundation indicated that he had provided some of the funds to those who had carried out these terrorist acts. Nothing, so far as I can see, no effort was ever made to investigate that, to follow it up. And of course, we do have the example of Mr. Orlando Bosch, who masterminded the bombing of the Cuban airliner, resulting in the loss of some 73 lives, including the lives of the Cuban fencing team. He spent some years in prison in Venezuela, but then was mysteriously released, shows up in the United States. The Justice Department wanted to either deport him or to keep him in jail. But the Cuban exiles got to President Bush, the first President Bush, and urged that he be released. He was released and now lives freely and notoriously, let's say, with some notoriety in any event, in Miami.
Yeah, I really don't know much about the case, so it's tough for me to make any comment about it.